Good morning everyone. Myself Pradibha Kalyani, currently doing my first B.Ed at NVKSD College of Education, R2. So now I'm going to discuss a topic about laboratory method. And this method is used to learn foreign language and this method is used in English language learning. So now let's see what is language laboratory method. A language laboratory is a dedicated space for foreign language learning where students can access audio or audiovisual materials. They allow a teacher to listen to and manage student audio which is delivered to individual students through headsets or on isolated sound booths. And this is a system that transforms a passive environment into an active speaking based learning environment. In traditional classrooms, the teachers will be lecturing and the students will be hearing. But in language laboratory method, the students will be involving in various activities through computers. So, the first language lab was established at the University of Grenoble in the year 1908. In the 1940s, linguists at the University of Michigan developed the behaviorist audiolingual method, and this method relied on repeated listening and speaking skills. Language labs were situated to the audiolingual method. So now let's see what are the objectives of language laboratory. So the main objective of language laboratory is to help students develop and improve their communication skills through various practices and activities. They are provided with a lot of assignments and practices so that the student can practice on their own and to introduce listening and speaking skills. To listen to model pronunciation, the students are provided with a lot of model pronunciation through headsets so they can hear it any number of times they want and they can learn the pronunciation. So, to practice and access speech and language, to communicate effectively, and to help students learn independently. In language laboratory, students can learn without the help of anyone. Teachers will be there only to guide them, and the students can learn at their own pace. So now let's see what's the equipment and process involved in language laboratory. So the language laboratory consists of three sections and they are hearing booths, console and control room. So now let's see about hearing booths. A language laboratory usually consists of 16 to 20 hearing booths for learners. In each hearing booth, there will be a chair and a table and in which a student can sit and work. It is provided with a telephone connected to the advisor's booth, earphones and switches for selecting the tape from the control room, for playing and hearing the same, for recording own voice, for stopping, rewinding and replaying the same. So now let's see about the console. Now the console consists of the master tapes and equipment, distribution switches, monitoring switches, intercom switches, group call switch and all call switch. So the master tapes and monitoring equipments are used for two-way communication between the teachers and the students. The distribution switches is to direct the recorded program to the students and the monitoring switches enables the instructors to listen to the learners to correct and advise them. And intercom switches are for two-way communication with the students. Group call switch is for inviting attention of all the learners to receive general instruction. And all call switch is for making announcement to the learners regardless of the program. So these are the functions involved in the console. So next is the console room. It is basically the record room where all the tapes, records and other equipments are properly indexed for quick use. So these are the equipments present in the language laboratory. Now let's see how the language laboratory works. And the language laboratory mainly works on students console and teachers console. So now let's see about student console. There are individual student audio panels or student computer applications where students can listen, speak, record and interact with language lab software. Teachers provide a plenty of assignments and exercise for the students where the students can learn and they can enjoy and learn it. They can learn at their own speed. They can make mistakes and they can correct it also. They can learn independently where the teachers will be advising them. Many student language lab applications allow remote learning and self-access to the learning materials. And the learning materials they can be accessed at any time by the students. And students can listen to the video recordings and learn how to converse in English fluently. So these are the functions of the students console and the main console is the teacher's console. The teacher is the leader of the language lab, allowing him or her to monitor the students and to interact with them and to advise and guide them. This is usually done with the teacher's computer lab application and it has a lot more features than the student language lab applications. And it has a user-friendly interface, reliable audio or video streaming functionalities, content authoring tools, teacher controlled exercises and the ability to provide written and recorded feedback on student submissions. The teacher can monitor the student from his or her own seat. They can assign assignments anytime. Teachers can view text images and they can access the sound of the students. So these are the functions of the teacher's console. So the language laboratory mainly functions on these two consoles. So now let's see about what are the characteristics of a language laboratory. So the main character is attention. By engaging in the language laboratory, the students can increase their attention and it result in better retention of the concepts, because in a language laboratory students will be involved and they will not sit passive, they will be active learners in language laboratory. Each student is focused on the program material being studied, increasing the attention span of the students. So attention is the main characteristics of the language laboratory. Next, building students experience. Students will already have a learning experience on their own. By engaging in the language laboratory, they can build on their existing experience and can gain further knowledge of computers in language laboratory. Then excitement. Students are very excited and show enthusiasm while learning language lab systems. That is, when we are in a traditional classrooms, even we will be very excited to go to language lab. The same excitement will also be in students and they will actively involve in learning. Developing listening skills. Students will be provided with a lot of recorded materials like pronunciations. By following that, they can develop their communication and they can speak effectively. So, self-pacing. Students can learn on their own without depending anyone. They can learn at their own speed. Rather, in traditional classroom, they have to cope with the teacher's speed. But in language laboratory, they can learn at their own speed. They can take any number of time for doing assignments. They can also correct it if they have done anything wrong. So these are the characteristics of a language laboratory. Now, let's see what is the role of language lab in developing listening skills and language skills. So, language lab is practical. Unlike the traditional classroom, language lab is practical and the students learn much faster in language lab than in traditional classrooms. The teacher takes on more important role in the language lab and the usage of more resources will help the students to involve in various activities and it can foster communication to students. So now let's see about the types of language laboratory. So there are many types of language laboratory including traditional, linguaphone, mobile lab, wireless lab, etc. So the traditional laboratory, it's the earliest form of language laboratory. It makes use of cassette tapes and recorder to help language learners. So linguaphone laboratory, it is similar to conventional laboratory but it is equipped with little modernization. And mobile lab, this is basically a console on wheels with storage space for headsets. And the wires connecting the sources to student headsets are replaced by radio transmission in a wireless laboratory. So these are the different types of language laboratory. So now let's see what are the advantages of language laboratory. Students get into deeper side of language and students learn to distinguish the pronunciation in English language. They become active learners rather than passive learners and will have self-evaluation on their own. The students first listen to the words and sentences in the language. The student can repeat the lesson as many times they want. The language laboratory recognizes the spoken form of language which is central to effective speaking. So these are the advantages of language laboratory. So now let's see about the disadvantages of language laboratory. And it cannot be used in learning, reading and writing. It's only limited to listening and speaking. The language laboratory requires a high cost to be built in the university and to be kept on going. So not more than 16 to 20 students can get involved at a time. The lesson need occasional revision to overcome learning difficulties to students. So these are the limitations of language laboratory. So we have seen about language laboratory, about its function and how it helps a student to learn communication effectively. So that's it. Thank you.